Okay, now if you have the stack, and hope you do, we're doing page 6, okay? We're doing page 6. Tomorrow morning we're going to do the last 3 pages, page 6, 7, 8, and 9. Tomorrow night is Wednesday. We're going to have, I'm going to give you a worksheet. I prepared most of it already. I'll add more questions to it. And Thursday from 8 to 8:30 will again be Chazara. I'll be here to help you with the questions if you want. And then Amir Hashem at 8:30 on Thursday will be this bi-monthly test, right? Every 2-week test in the Maimer that we're learning. Okay, so you need this, please, page 6. Now, Rabbi Say, let me move this over a little bit, make life easier for me. Okay, I'm teaching you the Sugya of Teshuvah. So far we've had 2 basic texts. The first text was Tanya. The second text was Lekutei Torah. The third text is going to be a Maimer from Tzemach Tzedek, which I'm going to do tomorrow. We're not going to learn it all. We're going to learn just a little bit of it.
Are we going to do Lekutei Maimer too?
No. And basically we have Teshuvah Tato and Teshuvah Law, lower Teshuvah and a higher Teshuvah. That's the constant. Now understand that I'm teaching you a Maimer from the Alter Rebbe called Ma Toivu. The Maimer is printed with the Tzemach Tzedek's notes. And I'm teaching it to you different than the Tzemach Tzedek writes it. L'chayda, you would think if the Alter Rebbe wrote a Maimer and the Tzemach Tzedek wrote a commentary on the Maimer, that's the pshat in the Maimer, so why am I teaching different? It's a question that's very hard for me to answer. You know, like I said to you yesterday, or 2 days ago, that the Alter Rebbe has 3 tshuvas. The Tzemach Tzedek makes the 3 into 4, and he splits them. That the first Teshuvah Tato, the second Teshuvah Law, and our Rebbe also does the same thing, and the Rebbe adds a 5th Teshuvah. It's really based originally on the Igeres Teshuvah. Why am I teaching it to you different than it's written in Tzemach Tzedek? I'm teaching you different because I think this is the pshat. In other words, the Rabbeim after the Alter Rebbe are adding a depth to the Maimer of the Alter Rebbe. But I think if you learn the Alter Rebbe's Maimer alone, without those commentaries, without those notes, the pshat of the Alter Rebbe is like I'm teaching it to you. So what I'm doing is I'm making an admission. I'm sort of getting up here and I'm announcing, Rabbi Say, I'm teaching you the pshat and the Maimer wrong. Please don't do that. You have to wash your hands, yeah? Why am I teaching it to you wrong? Because I think this is the pshat, the touch of the Alter Rebbe. Even though the Tzemach Tzedek at the end of the Maimer has his notes, which seems to give a different impression, and then our Rebbe bases his Maimerim on the Tzemach Tzedek's notes or Siches, on and on and on. So I'm sort of admitting up front that I'm teaching it wrong. I'm teaching it to you this way. I'm not sorry that I'm teaching it to you this way. I want to teach you this way, but I'm saying that Shkiyas Miyavan, I may be wrong in this whole approach. But this is how I see the Maimer of the Alter Rebbe, Bepashtas. What is Teshuvah Tato and what is Teshuvah Law? Teshuvah Tato is about Averis. Teshuvah Law is about Hashem, right? Teshuvah Tato means I want to go away from something bad. Teshuvah Law means I want to strengthen my connection to Hashem. How did we explain Teshuvah Tato? We're learning it for a few days. We're explaining Teshuvah Tato as Pagam, right? When a person sins, the moment that they're sinning, they're defying God. The moment, the instant of the Aveda, they're telling Hashem, this is called Merido. It's a rebellion against the Eibishter. We're not talking so much about that, even though that's a very serious thing. We're talking about the Pagam. Pagam means the lasting effect of an Aveda. You do an Aveda, it stays with you. Tomorrow it's harder for me to do a mitzvah because today I did an Aveda. So Teshuvah is to heal the Pagamim, is to get rid of the blemishes, the psychological, the spiritual weaknesses I mean, my favorite term in this context is the bad habits that Avedas form, because the way Avedas work is usually, if we do it once, we do it many times. We don't do a lot of Avedas. We do very few Avedas, but the ones we do repeatedly, because we develop bad habits, and Teshuvah Tatah is healing, quote, the pagam, the blemish, the bad habit. That's Teshuvah Tatah. What's Teshuvah law? Having a relationship with the Eibishter. Having a relationship with the Eibishter means my sense of Hashem, he's not my enemy, he's not something of ambivalence, he matters to me, he's important to me, I'm involved with him, and I get, for lack of words, I get pleasure, I get meaning from my relationship with the Eibishter. And of course the argument is, if a person does Teshuvah law, they're not going to do an Aveda. If you're involved with God, you don't sin. It's like you have a relationship with another human being. When you love another person, you're not going to hurt them. When you lose that love, when you fall out of love, it doesn't automatically mean you're going to hurt them, but you're much more likely to. So the Teshuvah Tatah is correcting the wrong. The Teshuvah law is correcting the relationship. But both of these Teshuvahs have one thing in common. It's how it's helping me. I want to be a healthy person, and a healthy person ultimately doesn't only mean I'm psychologically healthy. I have a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm involved with God. And this is, I haven't said this once, but this is one of my favorite quotes, right? What is the meaning of freedom? What is the meaning of being free? Here's my definition, okay? The meaning of freedom doesn't mean I can do whatever I want. Big mistake. The meaning of freedom means I can tell myself to do anything at any time and listen 100% of the time. I can tell myself not to do something and listen 100% of the time. That's a free person. If I tell myself, get up, and I don't, I'm a slave. If I tell myself, don't eat this, and I eat it, I'm a slave. If I tell myself, don't indulge in this pleasure, and I do, I'm a slave. If I tell myself, do this, and I don't do it, I'm a slave. That's the concept of Teshuvah. Teshuvah is gaining really control of self. I want to be a balabayis over me, which is what we call in the culture a beinani. What's a beinani? A beinani is the person who owns the only thing in the world we can really own. Ourselves. What's a Rasha? A person who's enjoying himself, but he's a slave. He sees that slavery when he wants to stop himself and he cannot. But that's the concept of Teshuvah, is to regain that control. So Teshuvah Tatah is I want to regain control over myself. Teshuvah law means I want to be in a good place. I want to be involved with Hashem, so that I should find purpose in retaining, so to speak, this control over myself. Okay? Now goes the third Teshuvah. We're going to read it inside. I have one regret that some of what is in the Alter Rebbe's Maimed is not here. I'll talk it out. Baal Peh. Okay, I'm going to read inside. Page 6, Gimel, from the beginning of the Perek. V'hatshuvah hashlishis hi. The third Teshuvah is Sha'afal pi, that beyond Shu Surmera B'tachlis, that a person is staying away from evil altogether. And as I told you many times, Ra includes sins of omission and sins of commission. I'm not doing any Avedas and I'm not meaning any mitzvahs. Those are both included in Surmera. V'gam v'asei toiv, and if you remember the class the other day, I'm creating toiv. Toiv is Yesoid. Yesoid is Ein Seif. I'm creating an intimacy with Hashem, which is Teshuvah law, b'tachlis. So Surmera is Teshuvah Tatah, and Asei Toiv is Teshuvah law. Azaya Teshuvah Gedei Liyesod. There's a third Teshuvah. And what's the third Teshuvah? Who to consider as the pasuk says in Malachi, Shuva Elayva Shuva Aleichem. Return to me, and I will return to you. So the Alter Rebbe is explaining this pasuk as a higher level. I want to tell you, Avram Fried has a song from many years ago. Yossi Green wrote it. The reason I'm saying Yossi Green is because he's a talented man, but he doesn't just write songs. He has a feel for the words. So he has a very complicated song. It's impossible to sing. It's based on a medrash. I looked it up, and what's the second source? The Panim Yafis from one of the Talmidei Magid. The song, huh? Yachid v'Rabim, right. The song is that from the time the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, there's a debate. It's a medrash. There's an argument in Yidden and the Eibishter. Hashem says to the Yidden, Shuva elayva shuva aleichem. You do tshuva first, I'll do tshuva second. And Yidden answer, Hashiveinu Hashem elecha v'nashuva. You do tshuva first, we'll do tshuva second. So there's an impasse. That's how the song goes. Since the time the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, Hashem says, Shuva Elai, you come to me, I'll come to you. And Yidden say, no, you come to me, I'll go to you. So this that says in Medrash. So the Param Yafes was Hamad al-Magid, the Pichas, the Balafloa adds a... So when you have Machlokes, you have to paskin. How do you paskin? You look in Shulchan Aruch. What in Shulchan Aruch? Yochid v'Ravim v'Lachar Karavim. God is one, right? God forbid you should say there's two gods. God forbid you should say there's two gods. And Jews are plural. So we're many and he's one, so we're right. Yochid, that's how the song Yochid v'Ravim v'Lachar Karavim says that the Eibishter has to accept our psak, that Hashiveinu Hashem Elecha v'Nashua. That's the toichen of the niggin. Now that niggin and that medrash is predicated on the assumption that those two psukim are the same thing. That Hashiveinu Hashem Elecha v'Nashuva and Shuva Elai v'Shuva Alecha are the same madrega. But the Alter Rebbe, if you're looking at the third line, says the psukim are not talking about the same things. They're apples and oranges. This pasuk is a higher tshuva. It's not a machlokes, it's two tshuvas. You understand? The Alter Rebbe is explaining the psukim on a deeper level. There's a third tshuva. And the third tshuva is Shuva Elai. The tshuva of Hashiveinu Hashem Elecha v'Nashuva could be the second madrega. This is a higher level. In other words, sometimes psukim contradict each other, and the answer is they're talking two madregas. This pasuk, Shuva Elai v'Shuva Alechem, is Hashem's argument in the song. Because it's the highest madrega of tshuva. What's the highest madrega of tshuva? Pirush, Kleshakosam, Makamach, it's explained in other places. Rabbi Say, Mokem Acher is a book. You may have heard of it. It's called Tanya. Peirik Lamed Aleph. Everything is in Tanya. Bepirush Kol Yomov B'Tshuva. There is a phenomenon in Jewish life of spending your entire life doing tshuva. Has nothing to do with sin. It doesn't even have, in other words, the way we're translating sin, pagam. Has nothing to do with tshuva to heal a weakness. It doesn't even have anything to do with relationship with Hashem. Tshuva law. It's, I guess the only way to say this third tshuva is there's a tshuva of becoming one with God. No reward. It's not about me. The first tshuva is about me. I want to heal my sin, my weakness. The second tshuva is also about me. I want to have a relationship with the Eibishter. The third tshuva is not about healing my sin. It's not about a relationship. It's about bittul. I want to be lost. I want to lose myself in Hashem. That's this third tshuva. I'm going to read it inside. This is not about sin at all. Because if it's about sin, a person sins every minute. All your life you have to do tshuva. You do tshuva when you're doing aveda. Kol yama b'tshuva indicates that you're doing tshuva all the time. Why? Ella, the teretz is hatshuva hi ala richuk. The tshuva is of the very fact that I'm far from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ki af shehu oise toiv. Now Rabbi say, oise toiv, you know from yesterday, from Sunday, is tshuva law. Toiv is your side. Oise toiv is tshuva law. Umekayim ha-mitzvahs, 1 second, I'm going to say that mekayim ha-mitzvahs is tshuva tatah. So this is a person who on the levels of tshuva tatah, and even on the levels of tshuva law, is in a healthy space. He's healed his pagamim, he's gained balabatishkeit over himself, and he has a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Im kolzeh, there's a third tshuva. Yachali yes, it's conceivable that this person should adayin bebchinas yesh v'davar. The very fact that you self-identify, that you say, I medafish shepedim kemes amachus meshuguf. Rub your hand on the table. It says in Shulchan Aruch that if you touch the parts of your body they're supposed to be covered, you're supposed to wash your hands. And it means under your shirt, it means under your yarmulke. Medav wissen, above your elbow. I'm a stickler about these things. I'm talking to somebody in this room, but they don't know who I am because I'm not looking the direction. Rub your hand on the table, yeah? I'm sorry. The very fact that I self-identify, that I have yeshes. How terrible is yeshes? How terrible is yeshes? Requires, in other words, I have an identity set from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, requires a tshuva. Even if I'm in love with him, it's conceivable. I mean, people have said this 1,000 times. You can't love something unless you love yourself first. The root of love is self. The root of fear, I know this is a little bit controversial, the root of fear is bittul. The root of fear is getting past self. The root of love is self. So Ava has a yeshus. The ikar tshuva, and this third tshuva, which is considered the highest level of tshuva. It's not about pagam. It's not about my weaknesses and my loss of self-control. It's not about my need to have a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's about losing myself in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is the classic quote from the Likutei Torah. This is the Likutei Torah. V'haruach toshuv el Elokim. The spirit should return to Elokim. What's the next word? Asher nishana, that gave her. Right? Every morning we say Elokai neshama. Elokai neshama. Elokai, comma, my God. And we say Elokai, not Hashem. Neshama shenosata bi, the soul you gave me and put into me, Tahirihi is pure. So we identify Hashem by the name Elokim, and we identify the neshama as a matana. This is based on this pasuk. Haruach toshav el ha'Elokim. The neshama wants to return to Elokim, godliness of Gevura, Asher Nesana, that gave it as a gift. So if you're familiar with the Maimorim, it says that this Elokim is higher than Shem Havaya. There's an Elokim, Gevura, which is an Atzmos, higher than Hashem's primary name. Like, for example, Yitzchak gave Yankov Avinu a bracha. What was the nusach of that bracha? V'yiten l'cha Elokim. So it says in Chassidus, the Elokim of V'yiten l'cha is higher than Shem Havaya, and that's the Elokim. V'ruach toshav el Elokim, Elokai, the Elokim, the Elokai that we refer to when we talk about Hashem giving us our neshama is even higher than Shem Havaya, and we call it a gift, a matana, for reasons which I'm not getting into at the moment. This is the third tshuva. I'm not doing tshuva about pkam, I'm not tshuva about relationship, I'm doing tshuva about being lost in God. Go ahead.
Is Mehusa Tshuva falling somewhere between Tshuva Ilah and this?
It is that Maimer. I don't remember the Maimer well enough. I don't remember the Maimer well enough to answer that question. I have to look inside and see it. But the wording is very subtle. It can be read both ways. And I just want to remind you that we're reading a Maimer of the Alter Rebbe in a unique way. That the later Rebbeim go in a little bit of a different direction. That Maimer is our Rebbe's Maimer from our Rebbe, based on a Maimer from the Friedik Rebbe. So you have to know Beklal whether they speak about three tshuvas. You understand? The Alter Rebbe speaks about three tshuvas. So Tzedek turns them into four, but if he turns them into four, he makes them into two again. There's two Tshuva Tatars. He calls it Tshuva and Baal Tshuva Tatar, Tshuva and Baal Tshuva Ilah. I'm not going in that direction. I'm reading the Maimer of the Alter Rebbe as if this is the end of Chassidus. So it's a good question, but you need to look at the words exactly. To philosophize is nonsense. If the mamish look at the words ginoi exactly. Okay? Now, Rabbi say, I want to tell you a story. I wonder if I bring about this a little bit. We're talking about the third tshuva. The third tshuva is not about sin. It's not about relation to Eibishter. It's about losing oneself in Eibishter. There's a guy I know who lives in Crown Heights. I don't know him well. I taught one of his sons. So we schmooze occasionally. I remember his father. And I'll tell you his name. I mean, you're an LA boy. You're not even going to remember the name. His father was Rabbi Hayward. Do you remember Rabbi Hayward? Listen, he was gone a long time. Rabbi Hayward was a Chinese Jew, a Sfaradish Jew living in China, Shanghai. And when the Bachar and the yeshivas came during the war, there was the Mirer Yeshiva, the Lubliner Yeshiva, and the Lubavitcher Yeshiva. He became much frummer. His family, I don't think they were even frum. They were traditional Jews. He became very frum. And then after the war, he moved to Calgary, Canada, which might as well been China. But he had a relationship with all the groups. He retained his relationship with the Mirer, with the Lubliner, with the Lubavitcher. He had a strong connection to the Kloisenberger Rebbe. He ended up becoming a Lubavitcher. That's a whole story unto itself. But his son, Mendel, told me, when he got married, he was probably 35, 37. A Yid went through all the tzaras. I mean, he didn't go through the tzaras directly. He lived through the age of wrath, you know. The girl he courted was a Canadian girl, a Montreal girl, from girl. Never suffered in her life. She was 20, 18. There was so many years between them. So she says to him on a date, what is your mission in life? What's your goal in life? So he tells her, with all the sincerity of the world, my goal in life is to become one with God. Now, if a girl would ask a boy on a date, imagine going on a date, a girl asks the boy, what's your mission in life? To become one with God. She says, do me a favor, stop the car. I want to get out. I'll walk. I'll get home my own way. She started crying. And they got married, and they lived happily ever after. It's a true story. It's a story, it's a time capsule. It tells you what life was like then. If you were from in 1945, 46, 47, you were fanatic. This girl had no problem with a boy telling her, the goal in my life is to become one with Atzmas. That's the third Teshuvah. It's not about me. It's not about what I need to be a better person. It's not what I need to be a more fulfilled person. My existence is to become one with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Now let me present it to you like it's presented in Tanya. Let me give you the Tanya version of this. In other words, this is based on Kamei Shekosa b'Mokamacher, B'Pirush Kol Yom of B'Teshuvah B'Chlal. The Alter Rebbe is not in the habit of quoting his own Sfarim, right? Why didn't say Kamei Shekosa b'Tanya? Because the Alter Rebbe wrote the Tanya. The Alter Rebbe said this Maimon. He's not going to quote himself. The Tzemach Tzedek's notes always refer back. This is the Alter Rebbe's words. What's in Tanya? The Alter Rebbe is a very fascinating idea, a simple, fascinating idea. He says, every human being at every moment of his life has many reasons to be happy and many reasons to be sad. You have justified cause to be miserable. You have justified argument to be happy. What's there to be miserable about? Olam Hazeh. I live in a world that's always wanting. You're never satisfied. You never have everything that you need. And most importantly, you're so far away from God. Hashem created us. Hashem gave us a neshama. Our neshama is a chelik elokah mimal, mamish, a piece of Hashem. And the neshama is trapped. It's stuck in a guf. So I could go into negative mode. My negative mode is a rachmanas on me. My whole life is a rachmanas. And of course, some people will tell you that negative motivation works. To hate your existence is a great motivation to try and change it, unless it depresses you, in which case it kills you. So there's an argument to be made. I'm going to spend my whole life hating Olam Hazeh, right? It's called the Derech HaMusar. It's called the Derech HaViskafia. The negative Avodas Hashem. The Avodas Hashem based on a certain negativity. That's option A. What's option B? Option B is I have a neshama. My neshama is a piece of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I can do mitzvahs. Each time I do a mitzvah, I'm connecting my neshama to the Eibishter. Each time I study Torah, I'm connecting my neshama to, or in other words, every time I'm involved in Torah and mitzvahs, I'm freeing my neshama from the trap, from the shackles of depression of the world. So the Alter Rebbe says you have two choices. Two religious choices, two Yiddishkeit choices. Choice A, to hate the challenges that I have and to want to change them. Choice B, to celebrate the opportunity that I have, called Kol Yom B'Teshuvah, right? How many mitzvahs does a person have to fulfill every day to be considered a frum Jew? You can count them. Right? I guess some people never finish because they have to learn Torah day and night. People on the highest madregas, they're chiyuv Talmud Torah, Yom V'Layla, otherwise it's bittul Torah. They don't get vacation. But most people today are not on that madrege. You have obligations. You put on film, you went to shul, you davened with a minyan, you made brachas for you ate, made a bracha after you ate, etc. You make high mitzvahs. Pardon me? But tzitzis is a passive mitzvah. It's a good point. Legitimate. I'm not going to argue with you. But then there's Kol Yom B'Teshuvah. Every moment I have, I'm involved with God because I want to reconnect to Him. It's not about paying my bills. It's not about my obligations. It's what I have to do. I want to do tshuva, not for Avedas. Not even because I want to be close to the Eibishter. I want to get lost in God. I want to become one with Hashem. Kol Yom B'Teshuvah. So the Alter Rebbe in chapter 31 presents you with these two options, and he proposes. He says, listen, you can choose two paths in life. One is a very negative path, and one is a very positive path. They both work. You can find justice to be miserable. My life is bad. I have a neshama. I'm a piece of God. I'm in an anti-God world. Of course I'm miserable. Option B, I have opportunity to redeem my neshama from this condition by being a Jew. And the whole point of Tanya chapter 31 is choose joy. In other words, what's the difference? I'm sorry for saying this. What's the difference in a chassid and a misnagid? I'm sorry because I don't want to put misnagdim down. It's not my business. The misnagid's position is the negativity of Olam Hazeh. I have to get out of here. And Alter Rebbe writes it clearly. He articulates that negativity. He says, but you can be a chassid. What's a chassid? Celebrate life. The very same life that you could look at in the expression in English, that the cup is half empty, is also half full. Every time I engage in Torah mitzvahs, I'm connecting to Hashem and redeeming my neshama from its prison. And the words that I know them by heart. I know them by heart because I heard them from the Rebbe. But when I would teach Tanya to teenagers, to Bachar and Sifta, I made them memorize this phrase. Teker nafshay be'einav l'smeach b'simchasa. You should consider your neshama precious. Take from the word yokar. In your eyes, to rejoice in her joy. Yoisem mi beguf hanivzeh. More than the shameful body. Shalela arve v'levalbel simchas hanefesh b'itzavei naguf. Do not entangle. Do not confuse the sadness of the body with the joy of the soul. You have as many reasons to be happy as to be sad. Sad has to do with goof. Joy has to do with neshama. Be a chassid. What's a chassid? A neshama yid. A positive yid. That's Tanya Perek Lamed Aleph is one of my favorite perakim, and I don't think it gets enough attention. That's the spirit of this perek. By the way, a little later down that page, you probably have the most important words in the whole book. Ach ani loy asisi esatzmi. I did not create myself. I'm not at fault for the way the Eibishter made me. The chesreiness I have, the limitations. This is explicit words from the Tanya. Ach, ani, lo, yosisi. I did not create myself. So the challenges I have, I don't have to be upset about. But not to take the challenge, not to use the opportunity to redeem myself from this maimed. The matziv, in the language of the Alter Rebbe, is a foolish thing. It's a mistake. This is the third tshuva. The third tshuva is not about pgam. It's not even about a relationship with the Eibishter. It's about becoming one with Hashem. And there's a lot of words. There's a whole page here, which I'm not going to read to you. You know why? Because I want to get to the last point. The Alter Rebbe presents us with three tshuvas and connects them to three words. Remember how this started last week, Thursday. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu. The lowest tshuva is Elokeinu. Remember? Changing Elokim into Elokeinu. My personal God. Elokim means the God of concealment. Elokeinu means my personal God. When a person sins, Hashem stops being Elokeinu, becomes Elokim. He's still the Eibishter. I don't experience him in my life because I created a barrier between myself and him. Elokeinu means to remove that barrier, that I should have a sense that I should feel that he's giving me. I should feel him. It's Elokeinu. And in the language of the Shia, this is Teva. To see Hashem in our nature of our lives, etc. The second tshuva is Havaya. Havaya is Sevev Kalalman. Havaya is Ein Seif. Or to use words which are easy for us to relate to, Havaya is Nes, the supernatural. What's the tshuva of Havaya? The tshuva of Havaya is to have a relationship with Hashem that says, this world is not a natural world. Hashem isn't stuck in nature. Hashem doesn't always do miracles. Hashem doesn't always do miracles for me. But I don't live in a world that's limited to nature. The Eibishter's reality is above nature. My reality is above nature because of my relationship with him. That's Havaya. Now we're learning the third tshuva. The third tshuva is Ata. Now Ata is not a holy name, right? Ata you can say in a bathroom. Ata can mean a human being. It can even mean an animal. Elokeinu is the name of Hashem. Havaya is the name of Hashem. Ata is not a name of Hashem. So if you look in Shulchan Aruch, and you say Ata, no big deal. It's not a Shem Kaddish, just not a holy name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? Like, for example, a few hours ago, or whatever it is, I don't know a while ago, you got up in the morning, and you were laying in bed, you put your hands together, you sat up, you said, Meid ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayom, shechazat bin nishmasi b'chemla, rabba munasecha. Why were you able to say Meid ani? You were laying in bed, your breath was terrible, your hands were dirty, your mind was fogged. Why were we able to say Moedani? Because there's no mention of Hashem's name. What does Chassidus say about Moedani? It says in the Yem Yem. None of the tum in the world could touch the Moedani of a Jew. Chassidus says that when you refer to Hashem by an allusion, by a word, by a reference, which is not Kaddish, al pi halacha, it's less than the Shemus HaKadoshim, it's less than the holy names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and al pi Chassidus, it's more. If you use the proper name for God, you're giving him a definition. If you're giving him a definition, it's not him, it's a level. Even Havaya is a level. What allusion, what reference can we use and mean Atzmus, like a little kid means God and he doesn't know about levels and places and stuff? You, or him, or of course, I, Anoichi, and Ani, right? Ata, you, when you say to Hashem, you, this is Atzmus. It's hard than Havaya, it's hard than Kifan HaSipur. From a famous Hasidic story, there was a Yid whose name was Reperetz Chain. the half Lubavitcher chains, literally half Lubavitcher chains. It was a very, very large family, and it looks like, to a very great extent, they survived the Holocaust. There's so many chains. A lot of them are not from. A lot of big politicians in Israel are descendants of Mishpachas Chain. It's a very special mishpacha. After Schneerson, there can't be more royalty in Lubavitch after Schneerson than Chain. It's true. Anyway, Peret Chaim was a Gaon and a Chassid. He saw 6 Rebbes. He's the Chassid who saw 6 Rebbes. He was a teenager by the Alter Rebbe, and he saw the Friedrich Rebbe in a baby carriage. He passed away. Friedrich Rebbe was 3.5. He had a son named Reb David the Hirsch, the Radatz. The Radatz was Poshet a Tzaddik. He was Madreges Tzaddik. He was a very big Chassid, a very big Rav, very big Gaon. And the Radatz had a son whose name was Reb Mendel Chaim, who was probably even a bigger Gaon than his father, who was killed. He was murdered in the pogroms during the revolution in Russia in 1918 and 1919. Anyway, Radatz was a very big chassid. But he was born a little boy. His father brought him to the Tzemach Tzedek. The Tzemach Tzedek did not see children. It was not his business. Tzemach Tzedek saw chassidim. In other words, Tzemach Tzedek's yechidus was not, how are you, how's your family? Tzemach Tzedek's yechidus is, you want to serve Hashem, I'll teach you how. That's what yechidus was. The Radatz was 11. And the Peretz brought him to Lubavitch. But the Radatz at 11 probably knew more Torah than all of us combined. He was a boy, but he was a prodigy. He was brilliant. And he was a serious little boy. So he had Yechidus with the Tzemach Tzedek, which was not characteristic. The Tzemach Tzedek did not see children. So when he went to the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek told him the following. It's brought in the Sichas of the Friedrich Rebbe. He said to him, Ver ois yingel. As du sagen Baruch Ato. Sollst du wissen, wer Ato is. He said, stop being a little boy. When you say, blessed are you, you should know who you is. You is Atzmas, the Eibishter. You'll say, Baruch Atah, who you is. So the kid was 11. He lived to 86 years at Radatz. He had a very long life. And from that moment forward, till the day he died, every time he said a bracha, he said, Baruch Atah, he would stop. And he would put his hand on his head, and he would think. So the story was, the king of Russia, the Tsar, came to Chernigiv. Chernigiv was a big city. He was the Rav of Chernigiv. He was a big Rav. So when the king came, the Jewish community had to be makabel panav. It was, according to the law, you had to show respect to the king. And according to Torah, respect to the king. They used to, Amalek Zeiten, when kings would come, Yidden would literally go out holding Sifrei Torah. You imagine? When the king came to town, they would come out to greet him holding Sifrei Torah. It stopped because by Sfardim, the Sifrei Torah has a case. So someone made a gzei, he took the Sfardim out of the case, and he massed to the king that the Jews are not respecting you because they're bringing empty shells. And it was a gzei, he didn't pay a high price for that, so then they stopped bringing out Sifrei Torah. But they would literally go out to greet a melech with a Sifrei Torah. Radatz was the Rav. He was the head of the delegation. And when the king came by, he started screaming. Hysterical, he lost control. So they arrested him. What was he screaming? It was the first time in his life he made the bracha, Shecholak Mekfei de Lebasav Adam. Well, there's a lashon that you say by Goyish a king. Then there's other words, whatever, there's words you whisper. But even a Goyish a king, you make a bracha. So he got excited, because by him a bracha was a whole Metzias. Because the Tzemach Tzedek told him, when you say Ata, know who Ata is. So what does it say in Chassidus? It says in Chassidus that our relationship with Hashem can be very sophisticated, very fancy, that you learn a lot, and you study a lot, and you meditate a lot, and you have an understanding of what Hashem is. But there's another concept. And the other concept is, I have a relationship with Hashem like a little boy. Children relate to God. What do they know about God? Nothing. But the God the child relates to is truer than the God all the philosophers relate to. Because it's simple. So in Chassidus, you have this whole dichotomy. Should I be fancy or should I be simple in my relationship with Hashem? Hashem and Elokeinu are proper names of God. They're precise. They're Hashem's names. Nobody else has that name. They're Shemes HaKadoshim. They're holy names. You're not allowed to erase them. If you're a sefer and you're writing a sefer Torah and you make a mistake, you cross it out and you fix it. If you made a mistake in the Askara, you have to cut it out and paste on a piece of parchment on the back and rewrite. You're not allowed to erase Hashem's name. Ata, you can erase. It's a common name. But Chassidus says, Ata is the God of the little child. And the God of the little child, this is the truest Hashem. This is Him. without any chokhmas. You understand? And that's the third Teshuvah. The third Teshuvah means I want a relationship with the Eibush like a little kid. It's not about my control over myself. It's not about my, what do they call it in the culture today? The meaning that I have in my relationship with the Eibush. I wanted the Teshuvah means I want to be woman of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is the third Teshuvah. This is the third Teshuvah. And that's what we read. Okay, so now, tomorrow morning will be our last class on this. We did pretty good time, by the way. Tomorrow we're going to read a Tzemach Tzedek. With the Tzemach Tzedek, we're going to say a Moeden de Kavart, and that is that in Gan Eden there's no Teshuvah. Teshuvah can only be here. When you're alive, you can do Teshuvah. Once a person passes away, there's no Teshuvah. Then there's another thing. It's called Gehinom. Gehinom. Teshuvah is a lot more fun than Gehinom. Okay, even though, as the expression is in Gehenna, you have lots and lots of friends and company. You know, the shluchim have politics already in Gehenna. Everyone is setting up a stand for tefillin. He's holding it for his kid. His kid is going to die. He's going to come to Gehenna and make him a tefillin stand. But anyway, that's what we'll do tomorrow, and then there's will be the test. Okay, good. We're done. Good morning.